Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Jai Om Vishnupad Paramansa Paripurajaka Ashtottara Shri Srimad A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Sakaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sham Kun Radha Kunikiri Govardhan Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Ki Jai, Ganga Mai Ki Jai, Jamuna Mai Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. Welcome to all, my respects to all. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtadeshatane. Vanchakolpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Well, okay, thank you. I think we've covered most of the territory that I wanted to cover. I want to leave time still for questions, and I want to circle back, as I said I would, to questions of security. It's also been suggested that we invite some actual living, breathing Vanaprasthas to speak with us in coming sessions, and I hope we can do that. First, I thought I'd treat you to a little example of what perhaps we might agree is not the Vanaprastha life that the Bhagavatam has in mind. I ran across this on the internet, and I thought I would share it with you. Okay. Isn't that lovely? Now, I have to say that although this is sort of a, yes, we love the Christmas music, it's certainly beautiful. I have to say that although this is certainly campy, it's really a campy Indian version of what you'll find in an upscale American context, where you can lay down big money for essentially the same amenities, just more polished, more with it, shall we say. But essentially the same thing. They'll send you their brochures of their generous common rooms, their nicely appointed sitting rooms, their chef designed meals, and they'll tell you about their, all their gyms and the whole story, so that you can spend your senior years in this sort of nightmare, this illusion in which one forgets that there's any purpose in life beyond this world or beyond bodily existence and bodily relationships. It's really quite astonishing. But this is really kind of what America has to offer. I could send you brochures of places, communities in places like Princeton and Miami, where you can really have pretty much the same sort of life, just American standard. And this is what we can look forward to in material life. Only in India, we can call it Vanaprastha. There are also some nice pictures, by the way, that we ought to share from the same fine place. Let's see. There it is, the ideal of Vanaprastha life. And just one more. If I can get it together. Oh, I have to stop this share. There it is. Spend your golden years in a way that you like. So this is the illusion of the material energy that will drift into our golden years in a warm and friendly environment, husband and wife together, enjoying what our work or our good fortune has brought us to, and completely forgetting that we have to go on to the next body, or completely oblivious of the understanding that we have to go on to the next body, and that the next body is determined by our consciousness in this life. So that's what you might call the worst case happy ending, a kind of nightmare. And we're not meant for that. The Krishna consciousness means to get free from material attachments altogether, to become attached to Krishna, and to prepare our way for the next life. I have someplace collected lots of quotations to that effect, but I feel that at this point it'd be something like a drum beat, just hitting you with quote after quote of things that you already know. Anyone who reads Srila Prabhupada's books can't fail to come across so many places where Srila Prabhupada is explaining that we have to become detached, and even where he's saying that we have to give up these our attachments to family life and family attachment. So I don't feel a need for proof texting that further. Now, devotees have raised here on this conference some rather serious objections. And really, the ones that I would regard as serious are the ones that boil down to questions of security. That's really the question. It comes in different forms, but really is a question of security. What about my health? What about where will I live? Where will I stay? Who will take care of me? ISKCON will not do anything for me. The joint family system is broken. We have no children, or our children will not take care of us. They won't be able, or they won't be inclined. What do we do? These are the questions that I've seen come up again and again. And they could be answered in different ways. There's a quotation, I don't have it right on hand now. It's from 11th canto, I believe, where it's recommended that in old age, one may accept the Vanaprastha ashram or sannyas, or if one has no sons, one may stay at home. In other words, that these things are dependent on having an arrangement in place in the form of children to take care of the elderly, mother especially. There's a quotation to that effect. And there are numerous counter quotations to the effect of, just get out of there. Let things fall the way they'll fall, but it's too important to getting out of material existence, and ideally getting out to do good for others is too urgent to put aside for the sake of taking care of one person, one's wife. That somehow or other, nature's arrangement will be there. And Prabhupada showed us that example. He accepted retired life and finally sannyas without really having much of an arrangement for the members of his former family. So both cases can be made, and I'm not going to argue here. I have suggested earlier that as far as possible, one should plan earlier one's life in such a way that some arrangement will be in place. Either you've got your family members who are responsible, or you've got money put aside, or whatever it is. But your own responsibilities, the husband's responsibilities, are pretty well taken care of as far as one can arrange. That's one thought. And we also have the thought that our ISKCON culture should develop in such a way that our Grihastha members particularly feel responsible for the brahmacharis, grihasthas, and brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis. That culture should be developed. And I've made as strongly as I can the case that charity should not be thrown away on feeding the poor and essentially trying to look good to the public while we're neglecting the needs of our own members who are more worthy of receiving charity because they're Vaishnavas. And as Srila Prabhupada said, charity begins at home. But I've also acknowledged that that's sort of a future hope, that at the moment, there is no arrangement in place. ISKCON as a society has nothing in place. Our Grihastha communities have nothing in place. The best we can say is that given cases of need, our communities may respond. They may be helpful. On this conference, one of the members has stepped forward to help in the case of one devotee I mentioned who is in serious need of elder care. And one devotee who's been attending these conferences came forward and said, I could give this much per month. Would that be good? So there are, and we've seen that there are cases where devotees who are capable do step forward and say, let me help. We know that Keshavarti Maharaj's former wife was taken care of in Stuyvesant Falls. She didn't have to be in anxiety. Who will take care of me? And there are many instances actually where we've seen that Krishna has somehow arranged. So, and we've also seen, sorry to say, that there are cases where it looks like there wasn't much of an arrangement for people. That one way or another, they weren't very well seen to. Not very well seen to. So both things are there. Now, given all that, where do we go from here? And I'm sort of discoursing here, but my intention is to invite your input and your questions. I would submit that in our previous session or two, we talked about things that one can do that are no risk. We talked about separate rooms. We talked about all sorts of regulating one's diet, involving oneself more and more in bhajan, avoiding mundane sorts of social activities, cutting down on or cutting out the television, the newspapers, the Gramya Katha. We've talked about many things that one can do that have no risk attached to them. And involving oneself more and more in preaching activities where there's no risk. So I would submit that let us begin. Someone quoted the other day the commonplace that the longest journey begins with one step. So we can make modest beginnings, do the things that don't involve much risk, and that's rather congruent with the Vedic system, actually. When you look at Vanaprastha life and when you look at sannyas life, there are, as I recall, 4 divisions of each, and they involve increasing detachment. And more than increasing detachment, increasing confidence that Krishna will take care. Increasing confidence that looking at things with a spiritual eye, with a broad eye, Krishna will take care. And one starts off on that path, and then one sort of gets confidence that, yes, I've gone this far and Krishna has been there for me. Let me go a little farther. Like a child putting his first one foot in the water, then another foot in the water, or like or Prabhupada gives the example, the caterpillar that puts one foot down on the leaf, and then when it's on the leaf, it moves to the next, brings the rest of its body up. So let us begin. Those of us who have more favorable circumstances can be bolder, or those of us who have greater determination or confidence can be bolder. But in any case, bold or timid, let us go in this direction and not be in the direction of the Vanaprastha senior community in Hyderabad, where we slowly slip into decrepitude under the illusion of happy golden years without Krishna. Let us be more and more engaged in Krishna consciousness, and Krishna will give us the intelligence. Tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamupi antite. I hope we could get Pancharatna Prabhu and Atita Guna Mataji here to speak with us. I heard them speak very nicely in Mayapur, and they spoke to this point, how they've gone increasingly in that direction, and how they've been increasingly rewarded and happy with the progress that they've made. And I would submit that others who follow that course will find similarly spiritual satisfaction in increasing their life of Krishna consciousness in that mood of freedom from material attachments, and not be slaves to securities, where I can't free myself for a wider scope because I'm afraid that what will happen. And then in the name of security, I'm a slave for the rest of my life. So Krishna consciousness means to get free from that slavery and break through to freedom. And I'll stop here and see what kind of thoughts you might wish to share or questions you might wish to ask. Kamalini's here. Welcome, welcome. Obeisances.
We have some hands up. Panchatattva Prabhu has his hand up first.
Hello, Maharaj. Excellent presentation as usual. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Okay. I've been thinking a lot along these lines of security, being of a certain age, and I recall reading some months ago a story about an elderly couple that received a knock on the door. They were living comfortably in their home in their golden years. They received a knock on the door, and when they opened the door, there was this lady who's an attorney, and she was accompanied by a couple of burly-looking men. And she told them that now she had custody over their estate, and as well as she had been appointed their legal guardian, and that they were to collect their belongings within 15 minutes and come with her. And, you know, they're elderly and a little bewildered, and she took them away and put them in this senior center where they were basically held like prisoners. And when their daughter found out and tried to finally she figured out where they were and tried to go and see them, they were prevented. And when they called the police said, we can't do anything about it, it's all legal, because the attorney had a judge who was assisting her in this little racket she had developed, going around to these elderly people, rounding them up, taking charge of their bank accounts, taking charge of their assets, and basically plundering them and locking them away. So this has gone on in the United States. The only way this particular scam was stopped was this woman intelligently went to a journalist who made a big story out of it. And finally, this woman was brought to heel and basically thrown in jail. Mm. So I guess my point I'm making is that we think that there's a secure path outside of Krishna consciousness. You know, we're thinking that the greater society will be there for us and so forth, but it's not really the case. My dad is 88 years old. He just turned 88 years old. He's dying stage 4 cancer. It's in his lungs and all his vital organs, and you know, he hasn't been able to cheat death. So I guess I'm hoping to stop being timid and be strong enough so that I can face death serving Krishna.
Mm. There's several points there that are worth reviewing. One, of course, is the uncertainty of the so-called security we're being offered.
Yeah.
It seems that, you know, here we are in America and we have our insurance and we have this and we have that. Everything can be wiped out in one way or another by by a pandemic, by an economic fluke, by a side swipe from a truck, by 100 different things. Our so-called security can just evaporate or disappear, be burned up just like that. There's no guarantee that because we've made plans, we've figured it out, therefore we'll be okay. What is that? The Prahlad Maharaj prays to Lord Nrsingadev that even if there's a good doctor, the patient sometimes dies. Even if there's a good ship, sometimes it sinks. So even if there's good parents, sometimes the child has no shelter, or the other way, that even with no facility, everything turns out all right. So it's not just by our planning. Daiva Traivatra Pancham. Finally, destiny or the hand of God is there. And it's not just that by our plans we can guarantee security for ourselves, or that without some plan we'll be tossing on the waves of disaster. And that's one point. The second point you made concerns accepting death. And I think that's an important point also, because our modern culture, especially our American, European, Western culture, really fights death to the last. It used to be that a person would reach a terminal stage and he'd undergo a period of decline and die at home surrounded by his relatives, and that would be that. But now it's you have all these treatments. You try A, you try B, you try C, you try D. Then you go to the hospital and they try A, they try B, they try C, they try D. And until the very last, so you're suffering like anything, and still they're trying to extend and extend and extend and extend your life under any circumstances. And really, it's preferable, just die. There's a verse in Bhagavatam where the section of Bhagavatam actually, in the 7th canto, I think, where it's talking instructions to Yudhishthira about the 4 orders. And it talks about how the Vanaprastha goes to the forest and he basically lives on roots and berries and so on, and his body declines and he dies. He just dies. Now, I think we have a different idea in mind. We'd like to preach, we'd like to serve, but there's a certain inevitability about death. Jata sihi dhruva mrityur. Death is sure. So part of security is to be secure in the knowledge that I'll die, and that's acceptable. It's acceptable to die. It's not that I have to have some huge source of funding and insurance and a whole plan in place so that I can fight to the end in the greatest American tradition. Let me die. But let me die in Krishna consciousness. Okay, there's some other points. Tulsi Priya, I see, is there.
Vijay Krishna Prabhu had his hand up, I think.
Okay, let's hear.
Oh, you can unmute yourself, Vijay Krishna Prabhu.
Maharaj?
Yes,
Yes,
we can
sir.
hear you.
Thank you, Ekendra Das Prabhu. Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Maharaj, in connection with the subject for today's class, it appeared in my mind the Bhagavad Gita as it is text. I do not remember in which chapter, and I do not remember the number of the text, but
You've frozen there, Vijay Krishna. Maybe if you turn off your video, we'll be in better shape. Or unless it's my connection that's doing this. Is it? No.
I don't think it's yours, Maharaj.
No, it's yours. Vijay Krishna Prabhu, I think if you turn off your video, that may help us.
Maybe we can come back to Vijay Krishna after.
Yes, when his connection recovers. Meanwhile, there are others who'd like to contribute something.
Yeah, yes.
Oh, you're back. Okay, welcome back.
May I?
Yes.
Go ahead. Yes.
Yes. Maharaj, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so my contribution for the class of today is yes.
Yes.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, a few problems here with the connection, but okay, if you can hear me, I'll go on. So my contribution to the class of today, inspired by your words.
You've disappeared again. Maybe you'll have to type Vijay Krishna Prabhu because your connection today just doesn't seem up to it.
Yeah, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, go ahead and type your question for now.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah.
You're sometimes there.
Okay, Vijay Krishna Prabhu, I'm gonna say go ahead and type your question, and we're gonna get to it in just a moment. All right. Hare Krishna. All right. Great. For the moment, maybe we can switch to Tulsi Priya. She also has her hand.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You're there.
Can you hear me, Maharaj?
We
just
can.
ask the question, and if you freeze, then you can type it later. But
No. Go. You can go. I give you my turn. I can speak later.
okay, I was just going to say while you have it, while you have the screen, do it. Don't stop. Just go.
No.
Go.
Can I go now?
Yes.
Let's go for it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, Maharaj, if you can hear me, my contribution to the Sangha, inspired by your recent words spoken in this class, is related to a text, Bhagavad Gita's text, based on reciprocation. In this text, I do not know exactly in which chapter and which is the number of the text. In this text, Krishna is chanting to Arjuna that in accordance with the quantity and quality of your service, of your surrender, I will reciprocate. So when we become worried, so my question is, when we become worried about how to take care of devotees, Vanaprastha devotees, sannyasi devotees, elderly devotees, is it how much important is this verse? Because my understanding is that in accordance with the quality, with the quantity and quality of your surrender, through your devotional life, through the years of execution of service, of devotional service, the taking care will manifest in accordance. Sometimes maybe some devotees who are in need because they are elderly, they say, no help is there available for me now. I did so much for the institution, but who is the judge? Who has the last word? it seems to me that in accordance with this verse, the last word doesn't belong to ISKCON, belongs to Krishna. And
Yeah, he's the ultimate managing authority.
so when we see that the institution is not giving us what we think we deserve, maybe we should take shelter in this verse and reach the conclusion that, okay, Krishna has the last word, and maybe I'm not a deserving person. Maybe I didn't surrender as much as needed for me to have now protection and safety and security.
These are all good points. Certainly Krishna never says in Bhagavad Gita that ISKCON will take care of you. He says, Yogakshema Vahamyam, I'll take care of you. Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, just depend on me, think of me, and I'll take care of you. So in one sense, what we're being called upon to do is to develop that confidence. To develop that confidence that Krishna will do that. But again, the Song of the Avanti Brahmana provides a good meditation. There are many places in Bhagavatam where the candidate or the aspiring devotee is encouraged to develop this dependence on Krishna. No one else can really save us. Gajendra couldn't be saved by all of his fellow elephants and his family members. It was only Krishna. And when he finally surrendered to Krishna, then Krishna saved him. So that's the ultimate point that we want to come to, that even Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Marabi Rakabi Yachchatar, you may protect me, you may kill me, but I'm your eternal servant, that's all. So we want to cultivate that consciousness, but at the same time, it's not for one of us here to sit and say what others should be doing, or to what should we say? Lay down ultimatums about what others should be doing. In one sense, the Vanaprastha ashram is that institution in which time is provided to achieve these realizations. Vanaprastha ashram, after all, is 25 years, ideally. And one is given the opportunity. One is encouraged, now detach yourself more. So in the beginning, one may be not really so confident, one may be worried, one may be really unsure which way to go, what to do. But as one becomes more experienced, as one develops confidence by progressive detachment, Krishna gives more and more direction, more and more opportunity. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mamu puyanti. After all, how are we, think about it, how are we going on in householder life? Everyone's taking a huge risk. You get married, and okay, there may be some of us who are, wealthy to begin with, or really well set up, but there's so many young couples, they really don't know how they're going to make it. They don't have solid sources of income. They don't have all that much. And yet they embark on this course of family life. They don't know what's going to happen. Are we going to stay healthy? Are we going to stay employed? Are we going to stay this or that? Are we going to stay happy with one another? But they undertake this risk for a sense of family happiness, family life. So, and then if they stick with it, then over some time, all right, we're still living. Sometimes we may be living better, sometimes we may be living worse, but Krishna's helping us. And so we're able to push on. Tulsi Priya remarks that having a child is a huge risk, enormous risk. You have no idea what's going to happen. Will the child be born healthy? Will the mother survive pregnancy? So many questions are there. And again, can we afford this child? And then what kind of life will this child have? So all of these things are risks, and yet we move forward and we find in our life that Krishna helps us. So the same story is there for the Vanaprasthas or the sannyasis, that Krishna is there, and one who depends on Krishna will get intelligence from Krishna, direction from Krishna.
Yes, Maharaj, but someone may say that, okay, what about the responsibility of the institution? What is the reason for the existence of the institution? If the institution is not there to, for example, to give protection and help to the ones who need it, what is the reason for the existence of the institution?
One might say that.
Yes. So my question to you is, what is the duty? Because what is the duty of the institution in this case?
I'm not going to say, because the institutions. Well, I will say some things. Institution is more than just the corporate existence of ISKCON of New York, ISKCON of Illinois, ISKCON of Texas, ISKCON of this, ISKCON of that. The real institution, more broadly, consists of its membership. And the members who are most responsible for these things are the householders. So the duty of the householders is to shoulder this responsibility of being charitable and supportive for the Vanaprasthas, the widows, the orphans, or the elderly, those who are in need. This is the duty of what one scholar called, Joe O'Connell called, soft institutions. Soft doesn't mean sentimental. It means they're not the official institution. But the institution consists of these social networks and of individuals, finally, who feel responsibility for the other members. So these things need to develop. For that matter, there's money in the hands of the sannyasis, a lot these days. So arguably the sannyasis should feel some responsibility to divest themselves of some of their assets in favor of taking care of members in need. And again, I make the case repeatedly that our charitable impulses should first be directed to our own membership before we start saving the world from hunger, making sure that kids can stay in school and have 3 square meals or 1 square meal. Our business is, first of all, to take care of the Vaishnavas. And that is the right target for our charitable focus, especially at this stage.
And Maharaj, is it that it is the duty of a sannyasi to say these things to the institution, to warn them how to practice charity? Again, and to whom?
Say to the institution means say to the members of the institution. I personally, if you ask me, I wouldn't have a lot of confidence in, I go to a particular committee or this or that and say, we need to do this, we need to do that. Please set up a bureaucracy, please set up a system. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't have a lot of, that's not where I would go first. I would go to the members themselves and say, let's change our culture, let's change our focus. There are those of you who have the means, so turn your charitable eye toward the Vaishnavas. And such devotees may organize something, either for individual members in their area or individual members they want to help, or they may organize something as something more formal, something more permanent, a fund, a charity, or this or that. They may do that. And there's plenty of scope for doing that. Most religious or social communities have that. They have funds that are carefully, responsibly looked after for taking care of members in need. So I expect that as time goes by, ISKCON will develop these soft institutions or hard institutions, these institutional features, these social features that every community really is expected to develop. But right now we don't have it. That's the immediate situation. And so you can say, pioneering generations need to take that into account and still consider that. Do I wait for ISKCON to pull up everything together so that I can have security, or do I have another vision?
And what is your advice? What is your advice when a person asks you this question? Should I do it on my own, or should I rely on ISKCON?
Oh, my advice is never to rely on ISKCON for devotees in this situation. If ISKCON chips in, hey, Haribol. If ISKCON wants to do something for you, that's wonderful. But I would not advise Vanaprasthas or so on to make that part of their retirement plan, to figure that ISKCON is going to do this or that for me. Just because, not because ISKCON is mean, but just because it changes, administrations change, financial situations of its different branches change, all sorts of things change, and I just wouldn't consider that reliable. As I said, I would start with low risk or no risk steps and let Krishna reveal as I go along how I can more and more depend on him, because Krishna is more dependable than ISKCON. Krishna's been taking care of all living entities since time immemorial. ISKCON's not feeding all the elephants, all the ants. Krishna's
of course. Yes.
Krishna's doing that. So then the devotee develops the confidence. Well, if he'll take care of all the elephants, all the ants, why won't he take care of his devotees?
Of course.
So that confidence, step by step, needs to be developed alongside of all these other things of a social nature that we've been talking about.
Thank you very, very much, Maharaj. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vijay Krishna Prabhu. Now we have some more comments here.
I think Tulsi Priya was next in the queue.
Okay, let's see. No, I think Sankarshan is next in the queue, at least on the chat box. We haven't heard from him yet. Do you have any comment on a common occurrence these days of devotees resorting to GoFundMe, please, to care for themselves or others who have experienced an unexpected crisis in health? I think that's fine. You're putting out the word that someone is in need, and that the community is invited or urged to respond. I think that's quite reasonable. When there's somebody in need, we put out the word, hey, someone is in need, can you help? I know with Yamaraj Prabhu, our former BTG man, that was done. They put out a GoFundMe request and people responded. And I don't see a problem with that. I think that's one of the ways that we can respond in such situations. Yovanananda says that a grahastha may think he has time eternal, but by Vanaprastha age, the warning is there. In Vedic culture, the institution was the village, yes. Yeah, so there's 2 points there. It's not that we have all the time in the world. As we're getting older, all the warnings are coming in. The hair is changing color, the skin is sagging, vitality is diminishing. So we need to see those signs and change our life accordingly. And in the Vedic culture, the institution, in quotes, was the village. Yes. So that's where how I would see things also. Not that it's so much the official structures of ISKCON where we're going to push for a resolution that there'll be this or that, but that our villages, which may be geographical villages, or they may be the kind of village that's established by a GoFundMe campaign, are where the villagers, the other members, step forward to help one another, where devotees come forward who are able to help. We have Atina, perhaps an obstacle is that there's no channel for grahastas to donate for Vanaprastha care. There's no set system within ISKCON. Yeah, that's true. Again, though, I would say, yeah, and I think in the future, we have like Food for Life. If you want to donate for Food for Life, there's like 10 or 20 places you can drop your dollar. But if you want to help with the elderly, with vanaprasthas, with widows and orphans, or what have you, there's really no place. So I think it begins with recognizing that this is a need, and that as far as charity goes, this is where charity is supposed to be given, to the Brahmins and Vaishnavas. That is real charity. That's charity as recommended in Prabhupada's books, and not charity to to save the world from hunger or so on and get favorable newspaper stories. That's simply not what he told us to do. To imitate karmakandya activities or adopt karmakandya activities for the sake of public approval. We should take care of our own members. And if we take that as one of our priorities, then you'll see devotees responding. You'll see devotees taking up that responsibility, and a mature, what would you say, a mature culture developing in which there will be networks, either because we'll strengthen joint family systems or we'll strengthen our ISKCON family in such a way that devotees feel that, yes, we have to take care of one another, and that as particularly the grahastas have this as one of their duties. Tulsi Priya, did you want to say something? You had your hand up.
Thank you, Maharaj. Two things. One is, I'll try to make this as vague as possible so it doesn't sound like I'm criticizing anyone. I was once asking about why, let's say, when people make donations to a temple, sometimes the residents of the ashram who are serving the deities maybe don't have such nice living conditions, or their needs are unmet, but people will donate fabulous sums for a fabulous festival or something like that. And I asked, why weren't there more fundraising for, supporting the devotees? And I was told that donors like to see their donations on the deities' backs, so to speak, fancy dresses, flowers, all that kind of stuff. So the sannyasis are not robbing anyone at gunpoint. People are giving them their money willingly, and they want it for certain purposes. So if we maybe educate people about, what the real needs are, I'm not saying we should neglect festivals and neglect the deities, but maybe be more balanced and consider the Vaishnavas also, because,
Well, we're not prakrita bhaktas. A prakrita bhakta only sees himself in the deity,
right,
not the other devotees. So it is a question of culture, and we do see. I don't mean to just disparage in every direction. We do see that ISKCON devotees come forward, ISKCON communities come forward, even ISKCON organizations come forward to support devotees who are in need, who do need support. It's somehow or other, it usually happens. It's ad hoc, it's kind of uncertain, But there is, I would say, a natural sympathy among the devotees for other devotees. And it just needs to be reinforced, encouraged, developed, focused upon, and cultured.
To add something, sorry, it just flew out of my head, but I was just looking at something that he's saying you can donate to individuals, and oh yeah, now it came back to me. I try to do that. If I see people who are in need, I try to donate, but I can't help but think that there's scope for some kind of organized bureaucracy or institutionalization of care and charity for devotees. And I was thinking, if there are people who are ready for Vanaprastha, but not quite ready to give up some kind of, activity, purposeful activity, then maybe that would be something worthy of their efforts.
Yeah,
their last hurrah.
I was thinking that the other day too, that this is a good engagement for some Vanaprasthas. If you want to do something substantial to contribute to ISKCON, you can sort of organize things, because the Vanaprasthas will be aware of the needs of elderly people, and they might organize things. There have been some attempts. It's been noted here, Gurudas Prabhu, the original Gurudas, started something, although it doesn't seem to have gone very far. Lakshmana Dasi is on this call still. She and her husband have started something for taking care of elderly devotees in Latin America. There are attempts being made. The need is being increasingly recognized, and devotees are responding. So I don't at all want to just paint a doomsday sort of picture or a critical picture where everything is bleak and devotees don't care. Devotees generally are caring, but they need to be encouraged, directed, and yes, encouraged and directed. And again, with the emphasis on serving Vaishnavas before we serve the world in terms of material needs. There's a comment here. Panchatattva, Sankarshan says, Panchatattva says you can always donate to an individual in regular scheduled amounts or once in a while. You don't need an organization to find someone for you. There are brahmacharis, vanaprasthas, and sannyasis, and other elderly devotees in need. They can be found. And yes, I'm personally involved with one instance, so there is a need that I can speak to, and there are others for sure. I'm going to take one last question from Danishta, and I don't want to run much over time because Tuako has its program starting just about now. Danishta, Mataji, you wanted to speak.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for all the points that you have contributed. I see that, all of us, or we are in different stages of life, and the way I see it is that maybe some things can be incorporated, when you're in a more advanced stage of life already, according to your means, like minimize your eating, and I think the most important thing that I have gotten from you, Maharaj, is to prepare mentally for for the eventual departure. So I'm very grateful for that outlook you have given during the classes, because that would also make me minimize my eating or getting rid of things, and preparing for what is what it is to come. So I guess when you find yourself already in this course at an advanced stage already, I think that's the only thing you can do.
The basically embracing our demise, that this is what it is. We're going to fall apart, and finally we're going to be finished. So we might as well be, rather than fight that, embrace that as, well, Krishna's going to take me. Either take me back to Godhead or take me to my next destination, wherever it is. So why should I want to stay here? Let me move forward in my spiritual life. Let me take everything as an impetus for depending on Krishna more, chanting and hearing more, becoming situated more firmly in my identity as Krishna's servant, so that my life will be successful. My mission in life will be successful. And when I leave, that will be just to the next phase of service. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Well, we're at 8:04. I think we will stop here. As I said, I think we've covered a lot of territory there, but I think we can. Shall we come back next week and share some further thoughts?
Plenty.
Yes.
Okay. And
Yes, Maharaj.
Yes.
all right. And we'll see. We have some ideas cooking that we'll pursue, and we'll see you next week.
I think we're getting just getting warmed up, Maharaj.
You think you're getting warmed up? Okay, let's see what it's again, as we were saying, you take one step and another step, and then you see what Krishna has in